Hi, my name is Yvonne Glover, and I am with Tyler Technologies. And we have been just doing so much in the transportation space, helping businesses like yourself really understand the data that is out there so that you can make safe decisions as you're identifying all these different risks. So, one of the things I really want to talk to you about today is what are some of those risks and what are some choices that you need to make when you're thinking about safety, particularly when you're hiring a driver? There's so much data that is out there, and it's like, how do I make all of that make sense? So we happen to do a lot of work with the Department of Transportation and FMCSA, which is the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and that has where a lot of policies and processes and rules are put into place when you're hiring drivers or anything really you're doing in the CDL space. And one thing that you really have to think about is like all this data that's there. What do I need to do? What decisions I need to make? And there are some things that you have to, you're mandated and you're required to, and you see that little checklist, whether you're using a company that's helping you to recruit drivers, whether you have that within your company itself. But regardless, you want to have an idea what are some of those things. So one thing I want to mention to you is the pre-employment screening program. The pre-employment screening program is a government program. Tyler Technologies has been contracted to run it. So we help manage it and we help provide all of the help that's needed, but it is a government program. And so there's lots of benefits that come with that, including the customer service, helping you as a company if you want to pull these records through an API. We do that at no additional charges. So the only charge is to pull the record itself. There's lots of services to take advantage of to make sure that you have access to this program. That is an optional program that FMCSA has put into place that helps you to pull driving records for your drivers. And you say, okay, I already pull a state motor vehicle record from the particular states. Well, if you've ever seen them, whether you have seen some of your team members pulling them in your companies, or you have another company that's pulling it, the states are a little bit different. And that's at anything, right? The states have a little bit of nuance about what information is on those records. And so when you have drivers crossing different state lines and you're trying to compare, you want to see what's happening, you want to mitigate some of those risks from those particular drivers, all the information is not the same. And Congress actually recognized that about 15 years ago and mandated that the Department of Transportation, FMC, remember that organization that I mentioned that really gives all the policies and mandates and make sure you have the guidance and that you need as a CDL motor carrier, a owner. They mandated that they provide some type of record that provides the same type of information for those potential drivers. And so what it does is it focuses on crash records as well as the inside roadside inspections. So if you were hiring me, Yvonne, and we were in an interview and I give you a resume or I give you my past history, I'm going to try to give you the best light possible because I want you to hire me. We do that anyway. We do it in any job that we have. But sometimes that means that I may not share all the information that may be a little bit risky. And that's where this PS record, that pre-employment screening program record that comes from the Department of Transportation can help. And so although it's an optional program, I really encourage you to make sure that you encourage your team members or the company that you're using who's helping with those hires to pull that information. It's going to give you 5 years crash records from no matter what state that they were driving in, as well as 3 years roadside inspection. The great thing about that, it gives you some details. And the details includes is if I was in a particular crash and if it was not my fault, and FMCSA has this program through the crash preventability determination program, determined that it was not preventable. That is important to me. That's important to me as a driver. I want to make sure that you know that this particular accident was not my fault and what some things can happen. Also, if I was on the driving team and I was not the driver, but we had some incident or roadside inspection incident when we were together, I wanted to be notated that I was there. You, as the motor carrier, want to know that so that you can make decisions. I have had motor carriers state many times that sometimes it doesn't mean that I don't hire the driver. Sometimes it identifies that there's a gap, that is there. And it may be just a training opportunity as well. So as we're looking to build these great teams that we particularly have. But also we've heard anytime there's anything that's not necessarily that shows you on the best light, there's many times that there have been lots of gaps that have been missing from those resumes and from those job applications because they're trying to find a new position. And of course, they're not trying to highlight something that may occur. Another good thing about this is that sometimes those motor vehicle records, they're great. And this PSP record is to complement it so that it helps fills in the gaps. But sometimes depending on the state, it's updated different times. And so I can have been into some type of crash. I'm immediately going to go find another job before I think it shows up on my MVR, my state MVR. The PSP, that record is updated every 30 days currently. It helps again, it's filling in those gaps. So this is the record that is there. These are some processes and programs that FMCSA have out there to help you to make better decisions as you're out there. It's been so good now. It's about 14 years that the program has been into place. So that's enough time that there are some studies that's been out there. And the studies show that you can decrease that companies that pull a PSP in addition to all of the other areas records that you're pulling, like of MVR, you're pulling the drug and alcohol. These are things that are required. But additional with the PSP record, they also are finding out that the crashes have been reduced by 18% and out of service rates have been reduced by 8%. So those are significant numbers and people are paying attention. We're also noticing that the insurance companies are paying attention because those insurance companies that are insuring the motor carriers and say, wait a minute, that's enough data that makes a difference, that lowers our premium costs, that also keeps we going to court if something does happen. And then we want to make sure that we're keeping from these awful litigations that may occur. And so they're wanting to share with their motor carriers as well. So you'll start to hear that. So this is it's great information that really look and see as the owners of these particular companies, you want to make sure that you have access to all of the information that is there. So how do you see this? It's pretty simple. It's a URL. It's a simple process to enroll, and it's a enrollment fee of $25 or $100, depending on the size of your company. And we have a team and they help you enroll. They utilize your department, your DOT number. You get in there and then you're able to pull those records and just instantaneously. So two ways you can just go through the portal to pull those records, or some of our companies, particularly if they're a little bit larger and they pull in on a regular basis, we can use it and put it into your API, into your technical system. That's a little bit above. Don't worry about it. Some companies, though, if you have an electronic system, we can make sure that it just fits in there so it's easy for your recruiters or your teams to pull that immediately. The great thing is that once you pull it, it's instant. You get it immediately. So if I'm sitting in front of you and I've given you my permission, because you do have to get the driver's permission to pull this, kind of like a credit report, very similarly, and you give that permission, I pull it into the system and it immediately pulls up. So during the interview, your recruiters can have a good conversation at that moment. If the cost is pretty minimal when you think about the cost that it costs to bring on a new driver, it's a $10 fee for the record, but there are bulk as well. So if for some reason that you have multiple people that you're hiring in a particular day and you're pulling those records, you knew they're coming in, there is some bulk discounts that are available as well. We make it's accessible for our drivers, just so you know, because just like a credit report, remember, it's very similar. You can access your credit report anytime. Drivers can access their PSP record at any time. We also provide for them a P monitoring program, which is free for them, which means anytime there's a change to their record, that they are alerted and then they can have the option to go in and pull their record to see what that change is. That is important for you to share that information with your drivers of your current teams. That is a benefit that is to them, and it is offered through FMCSA. It helps them to have better control of understanding what's within their record. It also helps to recognize if there's ever any challenges, if there's something that is incorrect, because where that information comes from, it starts from the state trooper on the side of the road. The state troopers, they're the ones who are doing the roadside inspections. They're the ones who shows up when there is a crash. And they're putting that information in. And as you can imagine, sometimes that can be a little bit of an error, just fat fingering sometimes of transposing numbers. And sometimes the driver disagrees with what was put into a record. The good thing about the PSP is those anything that is gone in, whether it's in court and it's still being looked at, will come up on the PSP record. Whereas an MVR, the state motor vehicle record, it has to be a conviction. What that does for you as company owners, it allows you to have better conversations. It doesn't give you a score. It doesn't tell you how they rank as a driver. It's giving you raw data and crashes and inspections for you to mitigate the risk of the drivers that you hire. And you are able to determine if they are a good fit for your team. Data cues, if there's any type of errors that you suspect, FMCSA has a program called data cues. And what they do is that they take any challenges that you may have, and there's a process that it goes through to help them to say that, hey, I have some proof here. This is not what happened, or this was not me. This is not my DOT number, etc. You as a company can help your drivers to help mitigate some of those challenges as well. The PSP team, there's a customer service team. They're very helpful. They're very helpful for you as a company owner, for your team members who may be pulling those particular records, but also for the drivers as well. The big thing is really think about what options do you have? One of the most value you have when you're transporting are your drivers, but that's also your highest risk. So how can you mitigate some of those risks based on what are they doing and what have they done in the past to make sure that you're making the best decisions? So just think about all these programs. Remember, this is an optional program, but it is something to seriously consider. The studies have shown it. If you talk to your peers, they would tell you it is well worth it to pull that one extra record.